Okay, it is 6 p.m. and I'm going to call the Planning Commission meeting to order. So if everyone will please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody, staff.
Good evening.
We again have we'll go ahead and call, have a roll call.
Member Keeney,
Present.
Chair Pro Tem Saragosa,
Here.
Member Wolf,
Here.
and it's noted that members List and Friend are not present this evening.
Okay, that establishes quorum. We're going to go ahead and move on to the consent calendar. And what we're going to do here, I'm going to pull item 1.2 as both Commissioner Wolf and myself were not present at the last meeting. And so we're going to hold those minutes approval until we have our other commissioners present with us to go ahead and approve those. So do I need to, I can just pull those, right?
General consent could approve that, both
That and the agenda
1.2,
itself.
yeah.
Okay. So without objections, do I have
Nobody's screaming.
nobody screaming? So, and all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, so the agenda is adopted. We are now going to move to item 3, which are items of interest to the public that are not on the agenda. So if anyone here today would like to address the commission on an item not on the agenda, please feel free to move to the podium and talk to us. Okay. Or not. All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to communications. Staff, do we have any
Yes,
communications?
the city did receive one email communication regarding item 5.1 on tonight's agenda. This concerns the Domino's use permit request, and it's from Laurel Brent Bum of the El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce. That email was provided to you, and a copy of it is also at the back table for the members of the public.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, anything else? That's it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the public hearing portion and move on to item 5.1. And that is for 1331 Broadway. It's a conditional use permit 17-03 for Domino's. This is an application to operate a fast food restaurant within the highway commercial zone that is within the Broadway Plaza Shopping Center. The conditional use permit approval is required for a fast food restaurant within the HWC zone. And now I'll turn it over to Andrew for the staff report.
Okay, yeah, as you mentioned in the title of the agenda item, this request is for a fast food restaurant in the highway commercial land use designation and zoning classification for a property located at 1331 Broadway, which is in the eastern part of our city in the Broadway commercial corridor. The fast food restaurant is a conditional use under the zoning designation of highway commercial. And so therefore, a conditional use permit must be granted by the Planning Commission before initiating that use. The use meets the city's fast food restaurant use definition under city code, in that the restaurant offers a standardized Domino's menu of primarily short order food service for on-site dining and/or food takeout. The request this evening, as I mentioned, is a conditional use for that fast food restaurant. The changes to the site would be minimal to the exterior. The only really physical change one would notice would be a new channel lettered wall sign to be placed on the roof canopy in front of the front doors leading to this suite 1331 Broadway. Most of the activity for this use would take place interior to the space, and involving the installation of restaurant seating, transaction counter, kitchen, of course, food prep areas, cold and dry storage, etc. Total sign area that's proposed is 51 square feet, and that is well within the 76 square feet permitted under the city sign regulations, under wall sign regulations. Based on the site has 38 lineal feet of business frontage. The restaurant operations would be open 7 days a week. Hours of operation would generally be 10 a.m. to midnight, Sunday through Thursday. And on Friday and Saturday nights, the business would close at 1 a.m. 25 employees would serve the business use. And Broadway Plaza has existing trash bins located to the rear of the shopping center that this use would utilize. In terms of traffic and circulation, the Broadway Village Shopping Center is served by 3 existing driveway encroachments located on the east and west ends, and a center encroachment to the parking area. Traffic impacts due to access or trip generation rates for the new fast food restaurant use is not anticipated. Staff is not aware of pedestrian or vehicular accident history for Broadway Plaza. The city does have an approved project called the Broadway Sidewalks Project that I did not mention in the staff report, but after a conversation with our city engineer, after a question raised by Member Keeney regarding the safety of pedestrian and traffic to the site, as well as she had some questions about the parking analysis, which I'll go into shortly. But to elucidate the Broadway Sidewalks project, it will involve the construction of sidewalks along Broadway from Main Street up to Mosquito Road intersection and all the way to Schnell School Road, excuse me. This project will include sidewalks currently designed to be placed just north of the existing landscape frontage in the shopping center. The final design will consider pedestrian and vehicular visibility, since the main source of funding for that project is what's called the Highway Safety Improvement Program, federal funding, and safety consideration is a requirement. This portion of the sidewalk will be paid by the property owner through an existing street frontage improvement agreement with the city. As to parking, Broadway Plaza has 122 existing parking spaces. Staff's report included under Attachment A traffic analysis prepared by their agent, Heidi Miller. After the question by Member Keeney regarding the parking analysis, her questions were germane to the validity of the numbers that were present there. And after working with the applicant and their agent has provided a revised parking analysis, which is prepared for you and presented at your dais this evening, a copy of which is also at the back table. The analysis, I'll let the applicant and their agent discuss that in greater detail, but it appears to reflect that based on the uses, the various uses that exist within that shopping center and their peak demand for those uses, the site appears to reflect adequate parking for not only the existing uses, but the proposed uses and the proposed times of operation that Domino's intends to use at the site. Therefore, staff finds that the use of the ITE, the generated parking demand numbers that are in the revised analysis for your consideration tonight appear to be adequate because they reflect and show that the site does have adequate parking. In terms of staff's determination on the project, again, due to the minor exterior modifications to the site appears, and the shopping center appears to provide adequate parking to serve the use, as well as the neighboring uses. The use is also a use that, under the purpose of the highway commercial general plan land use designation and zoning, it would meet that purpose. And that purpose is to propose a classification in which freeway-oriented uses, such as a fast food restaurant, provide necessary and convenient services to the US 50 traveling public. The request would also serve to provide for the expansion of the Placerville's commercial services sector to meet the needs of both Placerville area residents and visitors, meeting Goal C and Policy 8 of the land use element in that an existing vacant and commercially designated and classified storefront and floor area would be utilized for this fast food establishment use within, as we mentioned, the Broadway Plaza Shopping Center, which is adjacent to US Highway 50. The proposed exterior wall sign, again, is well below the 76 square feet of aggregate sign area authorized under sign regulations. Signs, therefore, are consistent with the sign regulations of the city. This conditional use permit request would therefore be consistent with the general plan land use and policy, as well as conditioned, the request is consistent with the city's sign regulations. In terms of environmental review, this request is categorically exempt from the environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act per guideline section 15303C, in that the request would involve the conversion of approximately 1,800 square feet portion of an existing structure from a retail office use to a retail service use, fast food restaurant use, where only minor modifications are made to the exterior of the structure. Public notice for this project was provided in the Mountain Democrat and mailed to property owners within 500 feet of the project location. As I mentioned earlier, the only comment received was one we received after the distribution of our packets, and again, that was from the El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce. Staff recommends the commission make findings of facts A and B within staff's report, then conditionally approve this request subject to the conditions of approval 1 through 8 provided in attachment B. Chair Saragosa, the applicant and their agent are in the audience this evening, and that concludes my staff report.
Thank you, Andrew. Before we go to the applicant, do any commissioners have questions for staff?
Andrew, I have a question about the Broadway sidewalks project. You said it would go to the north of which, the existing sidewalk or the parcel? Like
On the premises here?
on the right.
Perhaps it'd be better if I maybe just point to it on the graphic that's on the wall. I can kind of show you where that sidewalk would be proposed.
So are you saying that, so here's Broadway, it would be within the parking lot or up here?
Yeah, the city is looking at detaching it from the typical sidewalk installation in the city is to the back of the curb. But because we have existing and mature landscaping, the city wants to keep that as much as we could.
Sure.
And we have a willing property owner who has accepted a detached from the roadway to save the landscaping. So we will have a detached. Well, the sidewalk will still run parallel to Broadway. It will keep and retain the landscaping. So
landscape planner.
right, and the final design, of course, the angles of these parking stalls may need to be shifted a little bit, but we don't anticipate any loss of parking.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to point out for clarification that this sidewalk requirement is actually being imposed on the property owner and is not, it's not a condition of approval that is specific to Domino's. They entered into a street frontage improvement agreement some time ago when some improvements triggered the need to enter into that agreement with the city. So now that the city has this large capital improvement project proposed, we can call that street frontage improvement agreement in, and therefore then that property owner will pay and fund that section of that improvement.
Thank you, Pierre. Would the applicant like to come forward to talk about the project? Draw straws.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Heidi, and the agent in this.
Craig Turner, I'm the Domino's franchisee. The applicant.
So, If you have any questions, Craig is actually the owner, and he has a few other Domino's locally and around the area, right?
Correct. We opened the store in Cameron Park, which you may or may not be aware of. We opened that about 18 months ago. Very nice store, great community. I've been a franchisee for 26 years. I've owned and operated 34 different stores, sold some of them. But, our intent is to come into this fine city, build a very quality-built Domino's Pizza store, hire members from the community and train them up and service the community. That's what we do.
Thank you. I had just one question? No. Go for it.
Mr. Turner, are you going to include delivery from this site, or is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I wasn't clear from the application. You typically think of Domino's as doing that, but you talk about how you're going to have options for dining in. Thank you.
Well, we do. The new concept that is just that new, like in the last 24 months or so, this particular location will seat maybe 25 to 30 people. So a new concept for Domino's is dine-in. And, it's kind of surprising to some people that walk in because they're used to knowing whether they were in the college days or whatever, Domino's is famous for delivery. We now do probably 60% of our business is more dine-in and carry-out, even though we do still deliver a lot.
Now,
So.
someone had a question, how far will you drive to deliver?
We do, Domino's allows us to go 9 minutes. So we have a specific delivery area, and we stay within that boundary. You're welcome.
I had just one question, and it really has nothing to do with the approval to here today, but just. I have one of those too. I was just wondering about the time till midnight and 1. Are you delivering that late?
We do.
Or do you anticipate having folks being in-room dining? Only because I saw that there's no alcohol. 'Cause I thought, well, people
There's no
have
alcohol.
beer
Great
and want to
question.
watch games or something, but
Yeah.
so I just was questioning the timing of the hours on that.
Great question. We close our dining room at 10 p.m. And so at that point, we go to delivery. And okay, who's up at midnight ordering pizza? You'd be surprised. So hotels, obviously, people get in late, they want something to eat, we're there.
There's also softball leagues that usually end about 10 o'clock at night too, so
And
yeah.
they order a lot,
Yeah.
So that type of thing. Some people work different shifts, so we're there to serve them.
No, that's great. I mean, there's not a lot of food options at, post 10 p.m., so.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I just have a stupid layperson question. I'm looking through here going, God, I hope they're going to be delivering pizza with drones. But I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything in there.
You
So.
might be surprised.
Is that
I don't know
coming?
if you saw Domino's did something just like 2 weeks ago where it was on Good Morning America, one of the morning shows, where we had, they're working with Ford, and we've got the first self-driving car delivered a pizza, and they're actually testing that up in Michigan, where Domino's is based out of. And so, it's probably going to happen someday. So.
I was remiss in thanking you for redoing the parking analysis. You went to a lot more trouble. I just was thrown off by the first round when it was just, it seems like we have 122 spaces, and neither way of calculating how many we need was even close to 122. And I also appreciate, took a quick look at, you went out several times during the day and took a little bit closer look, and I appreciate your extra effort.
You're welcome. Apologies for that, yeah.
Would you mind walking us through just that? Because it's not hugely significant, but it is a significant difference between the, negative 15 and negative 47 on the ITE parking numbers. So just wanted a little bit more background on how you came to that. I mean, my thoughts on just driving by there at pretty much any time of the day, there's ample parking, but I still wanted just to just so that, because we do have different numbers here, just so
Right.
we get that on the
So
record.
there's there's a parking analysis report which shows the city of Placerville, their ratio of numbers, which we did by a shopping center, and then we also compared the ITE standard numbers, and we compared that equal using a shopping center number, and then we did the Subway and Domino's as fast food. But the other report that you're talking about, I think, where is a different kind of report where we actually went several times during the day and counted the spots open. Because the city of Placerville one showed we were 45 spaces short, which was quite a lot. The IT showed we were positive 15. And considering those are just kind of standard formulas, we wanted to show something that was actually reality to this space to show that there was ample parking. So, yeah, I guess Andrew would probably explain better how the Placerville and the IT is different. I think they're just different standards. Placerville probably came up with one somehow, and then IT comes up with theirs as well. So, and I don't know how they figured their numbers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any comments, Andrew, on that?
As far as the history of the city parking requirements, they're well before my employment here. I don't know where exactly they came from. ITE, though, they utilize studies that could involve properties all over the country, especially shopping centers where there are existing centers that someone can actually sit there and count vehicles and look at usage and look at demand when these various uses that occur within those shopping centers, for example, when is their peak timeframes. ITE doesn't have a land use necessarily analysis for every possible land use out there. So in many cases, not for this particular project, but there could be situations where the city will use them as more of an ancillary analysis, just to compare how that use may be similar to the proposed use, perhaps before you or before the city. But peak demand might be something that the city looks at if ever we get a chance to update our parking, because that truly reflects, what the name implies, the peak demand for those uses at any particular time. In this particular shopping center, because you've got various uses and various opening hours, so maybe the office environments that are suites that are in this center certainly operate at a different hours of operation than what Domino's typically would be driving parking demand for. So I think with the shopping center, you're going to have times of the day where not every stall is taken, just because the uses either are not open fully, or they don't expect people if depending on the use, et cetera. The Taekwondo studio there, they probably have set times when they have their activities, and other times of the day there's nobody in the building. So anyway, that's my comments on that.
Thank you. Any further questions of the applicants? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comments. If anyone here today has any comments on this project, please come forward and state your name if you like. All right, seeing none, we will go ahead and close the public comment portion and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Comments, questions?
Well, I like the project that has been proposed. I think it's a good use of an area that, is a little underutilized right now. And I also like the new business approach that Domino's is talking about, having dining in, not so much the emphasis on delivery, except the way you're planning on using that, I think that's also good for our community, is to, we kind of close down around 9 o'clock, honestly, but I'm sure you can adjust your hours, but I would think that the majority of your customers would want delivery after about 10 o'clock. There'd be fewer and fewer walk-ups and dine-in, that kind of thing. My concern about it, though, is the parking is one issue, and I'm glad we have plenty of parking, but the location with the Domino's being right next door to the Subway and the Golden Dragon, we have 3 restaurants. The peak demand's going to be at the same, well, I think Subway's more of a lunch spot, but the other 2 probably dinner places. And it makes it congested at that one entrance. And one thing that occurred to me is there something we can do to direct cars away from pedestrians crossing to get in? If you have to park across from the store front and walk across. I'm glad we haven't had any accidents there, but I've had a couple of near misses, and it could be a comment on my driving more than anything. But yeah, you can see that we've got 3, quick turnaround for Subway and Domino's, and then the Golden Dragon restaurant. People come in and stay for, 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever. So that was part of my concern about the impact, not on Broadway. I don't think there's going to be that much trip generation, but it's going to be a little more congested right there at that one entrance in the middle.
I have a question for staff. They still have to come back with their full set of improvement plans, don't they? I mean, or is this
No.
this is the only shot at the parking lot?
No, this is a request for a conditional use. The site's already developed. As I said, the only really exterior improvements are the wall sign that's proposed. So that will require a separate permit. And they are currently undergoing a tenant improvement permit at their own risk. They're going through the process right now for the building department for the interior remodel of that building, or that suite.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. So our focus is, of course, on, is this just, approving or
The use, its
denying a
operation,
conditional
et cetera,
use? Yeah, it's not specific design.
I would just add that this is basically what they're looking at is a new tenant, and it would be a tenant improvement to an existing building. This is an old shopping center that was built in 1963. That's why you don't see the sidewalks. And so, the city itself is moving forward trying to improve that. But there really isn't a nexus to require Domino's as a tenant in this existing shopping center to do capital improvements to the property itself. We are recommending that you make a finding that the project gets categorically exempt from CEQA review, meaning no impact on the environment or to health and safety.
Thank you. No, my only comments would be I'm excited to see something else go into this shopping center, hopefully. As my colleague mentioned, it is an underutilized shopping center. And so when we can take vacant spaces and put a good business in there that's going to employ up to 25 people, I think that's fantastic. So I also like that you had in your application that you're going to look to hire locally first, which is always a plus as well. So, combining those things, we talk a lot about what we're going to do on Broadway and Upper Broadway and how we're going to attract more businesses. And so I think, every step along the way here is a positive thing. And so I thank you for bringing this project forward. In regards to your question on circulation in the parking lot, there will be some increase there. I'm not too concerned about it being a circulation safety issue. I think no more so than if you were going to go to Rayleigh's or somewhere else and you had more cars coming through at a certain period. So I'm okay with that. That would be my comments on this project.
Oh, perhaps when the city starts working on the Broadway sidewalks project, perhaps, I want to say traffic calming might be part of that ultimate design, since that's an improvement that the owner is going to undertake as opposed to a tenant, right? Mr. Painter?
Right, the street frontage improvement agreement, I don't know the year that was recorded, but yes, that requires the property owner to to contribute to the cost of those improvements, that sidewalk improvements we were talking about. So their contribution will go into that overall project in that pool of funds that they'll be used for that purpose. So yeah, that's something the city could certainly look at as far as, this use after it's open for a period of time. There's going to be a time period before that CIP project comes online. We expect it in the next 18 months. So that might be a good track record for this particular use to be somewhat analyzed by staff, and maybe even look at traffic incident history if something is generated over that time, and maybe something can be done to traffic calm that's a good term. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion. I move we find that this request is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act and of Title 14 of the California Code of Regulations, and approve the submitted conditional use permit 17-03 based on the findings and conditions of approval included in the staff report.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, we go ahead and call a roll call vote on that.
Member Wolf,
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Zaragoza,
Aye.
Member Keeney.
Aye.
Okay, that passes 3-0. Congratulations. Okay, so item 5.2, zoning ordinance amendments, modifications to sections 10-4-3, yards to Chapter 4 General Regulations of Title 10. And so we're going to go ahead and move this item once more. Fortunately, we have 3 commissioners here today, so I apologize to anyone that wanted to make comments on this. We've moved this a few times, and so, but we do want to have at least 4/5 of our board here to make this sort of an important decision on this item. So, without any objection, I'd like to go ahead and table 5.2 until the next date certain, where we know we have at least a 4/5 majority of our board here. I know we have a couple of other absences still coming up, so I'd like to make sure we have this where we don't have to move it again. I hate doing that to the public, especially if they're going to come out to make comments on this one. And we've moved it a couple of times, so to the extent possible, I'd like to get it to a date certain of 4/5 of us being present.
If, Mr. Chairman, if staff can make some comments. First, staff would like to
Yes.
recommend that it's moved to a date certain, that being October the 17th. And then staff would strongly recommend that the Planning Commission, if the commission has a quorum, of course, do consider the item, whether or not you have 4.
Agreed. I think, so we will, move this to October 17th. If we have 3, then we'll move forward with the 3. But I think that will give everyone enough advancement as well to make sure that we're all here if we can be.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I can't believe people miss meetings. I mean, who does that? Okay, do we need to?
So, point of order, yes, you would need to someone would need to raise a motion and second that motion.
I so move that we table it to a date certain.
Second.
And then I guess just a little clarification on that would be,
The date certain would be October 17th.
yeah, the date certain, and then also that one will be try to act on it regardless of how many people are here.
Correct.
As long as we have a quorum.
Correct. All right,
Question.
we'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now we will move to item 6, matters from commissioners and staff. So we'll start with commissioners first. Any of my colleagues have anything they'd like to announce, share? Okay, staff?
Well, I know at one point, a few meetings back, Member Wolf did mention that he does want to maybe convey some of the observances he had during he and his wife and their bike trip. I'd be happy to hear that too. Maybe not tonight, but at some point we could certainly put that as a discussion item, or if he's so inclined. The only really item that I have is due to the how do I say this? I know our policy right now is to try to get you packets for the upcoming meeting 2 weeks prior. Now, staff wants to tweak that a little bit, just because we can't on that day hand you. It's difficult for us to. Number one, we can't do the minutes for the meeting held on that same night. I don't have time. So there would be at least a 1 day lag. So we may have items where, I'd be happy to give you that information, but I think we're going to try to get the full packet out to you the following day. So tomorrow, we will have one item on that agenda on October 3rd, and it will have the minutes from tonight's meeting, and we will have an agenda that will be complete. Now, knowing now that one of our items was not going to be moved to that particular date, but to the date after October 17th. So I think moving forward, if at all possible, we commit to getting the packets, the agenda, and the minutes for that subsequent meeting, the day after a meeting that you have. I know it's not as convenient to pick up the materials here, but at least you'd have the full packet to analyze at that time. Any questions about that? I mean, we'd be happy to go back to our other modus. But,
Well, it just occurs to me that you guys have been doing this a long time. You can recognize a simple agenda versus a potentially complicated one. And I would think, as long as we're moving toward that intent of the full transparency, hitting all the deadlines and allowing us to be as up to date and as educated as we can, I would think sometimes if it's 3 or 4 days later or a week later, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. And part of me saying that is just speaking from personal experience, you can get the agenda out and available 2 weeks before the meeting, and then the reality is some of us are getting it 2 or 3 days before, where we finally pick it up and then do our homework. So I don't think you guys need to be total slaves to this schedule, but I'm just me.
Yeah, the intent all along was we had some comments made by members of the public who wanted the ability to look at applications, the application submittal packages that an applicant provides, well before our old way of doing business, where that stuff would not really be released until the Thursday before the meeting. Member Wolf knows that because he was during that era where when it became available to the commission is when we made it available to the public. So with our process now, we're actually moving things backward in time, allowing interested members of the public to view these documents. In fact, Lynn in our office, we make it a point, whenever we get a submittal package, it doesn't have staff's analysis of a project, but at least you can look at their application materials. And it's on our website. We update it quite often. So if you ever have some time where you want to, hey, what's the city doing? We do have some websites where that can be done. Again, a lot of them won't have analysis from this office because we haven't prepared that for you, but it does. It's another way for us to let the public know that there is a development project and it is coming. A date has probably been set for it or will be set soon, and so it's just a way for us to get that information out for the public to have a knowledgeable. When they come to this room and present or speak before you, they would have had a little bit more time to review those or that information before they came here. So
that makes sense to me. If it takes whether as Commissioner Wolf said, a few more days, I don't see any harm there. The only comment I would make is as we get and in this one. It was way late, but to the extent that we do if there's an item that's going to generate significant public interest and we're getting, whether it's emails just from, residents or business owners or things, I mean, to the extent they can be packaged up, I wouldn't mind being able to see those beforehand, before coming to, this one came in on a Friday, so I'm not suggesting that this one would have gotten to us beforehand, but, even if those can be, I don't know if those can be uploaded or not too, as an attachment. But I know for myself, I would appreciate if I know there's 15, emails from residents, surrounding a project or something. It's just helpful for me to know that prior to coming in.
Our public noticing does describe some comments made by council and commissioners in the past, basically echoing what you just said, Member Saragosa. The wanting and willingness to read this information and avoid reading it at the last minute, just because it may not carry the same, I hate to say weight, but it doesn't. Maybe the length or the brevity or the amount of documents that you receive, spending a couple minutes to frantically read and get the content of what that contains is difficult. I guess one of the drawbacks with having the staff report prepared 2 weeks prior is that is when perhaps members of the public might want to comment about staff's recommendation and staff's comment on the project. But our public noticing requests are that if an applicant, or not an applicant, but if a member of the public wishes their comments to be submitted in the packet that goes before the decision makers, we need to get that to us to distribute to you well before, at the time that we make that packet available to the commission members or the council. So I guess there is a rub there. There are comments about just the nature of a particular use, and then there are comments in my time here about staff's analysis of that use, or it brings up questions. And in many cases, then perhaps the members of the public can be frustrated because their comments weren't provided to you, an adequate time before the meeting, or I'm kind of rambling here, but I think you get the point. But.
Well, I've also noticed, I feel your pain. But there's also this other thing that happens where it's a strategy on the part of some people, either for or against a project, to come in at the last minute, so nobody else gets to review what their ideas are, but they get to review everybody else's. And so then we get a lot of times we'll get here's the 27 pro letters or con letters that didn't go through that process like everybody else did. So they just wait, bomb us with that stuff, and then it's always uncomfortable. So there's no real solution to it, but your idea is great. Let's just try to get as much as we can.
Yeah, and I would anticipate that being a two-step process where we're going to probably get our packets, and then a week later, or whatever, it could even be 72 hours, whatever, that there might be, several attachments from the public. So I wouldn't expect that to be all together at one time thing.
We have had a situation where, and maybe Director Rivas can also chime in here, where there was an expectation from a member of the public that their comments were not transmitted timely because it was submitted maybe after the time specified, and because of the nature of the record, the record of the proceedings, some of the comments did go forward, but theirs, for some reason, did not. There could be a perception that, staff is just withholding, sending these out because we may disagree with their conclusions. I don't know where I'm going with this comment, but I guess what I'm saying is trying to ensure that comments received late get to you. I cannot adequately state that you will have read your email attachments prior to the meeting. I can't make that confirmation to a member of the public. All we can do is distribute it to you, and perhaps post it to the website. But it's incumbent upon the readers, whether it's a member of the public, to look at the staff report online or look at the agenda. So,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's, you know, and we just been similar in the legislature. You know, if I don't get in a letter to a committee staff a week before the hearing for a committee hearing, it doesn't get into the record. So if I have a formal oppose or support on something, it needs to be in at least a week beforehand. And all committees differ a little bit, but some give a little leeway. But for the most part, you know, it's a week.
Yeah.
So even at that, and you're sometimes talking, you know, hundreds of letters that might come in on something.
as you're aware here, once you open the public record, then we have to accept any written comments submitted by a member of the public.
That's,
So-
that's what I was going to ask about. I mean, that to me is the most awkward situation, whether it's pro, con, no matter what your opinion is on the item, is that we have occasionally even adjourned so people can stop and read for a minute. Then you got a bunch of cranky people and a bunch of happy people, and you're trying to read it and absorb it. But am I to understand, we have to take that stuff once the public hearing's open?
Yeah, the member of the public during public comment period, it can be in written form or it can be a verbal comment. So
Okay,
yes,
that's what I thought,
it becomes part of the public record.
All right.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, critiques? All right, well, that's item 6, so we'll move to item 7, which is adjournment. So we will stand in adjournment this evening. Thank you.